Oh, I gotta have a talk with you guys real quick because seriously, the UFC better not fumble the rest of 2025. And what do I mean by that? Well, I came into this year thinking that we were going to have one of the greatest years in UFC history. Just the storylines, the build-ups, the fighters, and I mean, the UFC is a whole new height of popularity right now, and they are in the position where they could deliver literally one of the greatest years in their company. Back to back to back, it could be just a crazy lineup of historic pay-per-views. And so far, 2025 has been a little bit mid. Like, UFC 311 was one of the most stacked ways to start off the year. I'll give them that. I mean, the way they made it with Islam and Arman, Umar Merab as a co-main, that was a really good card to start off the year. Then you have 312, a significant drop-off. One of the worst pay-per-views I've ever seen in UFC 312. So you go from an incredible pay-per-view to start off the year with UFC 311 to a horrible card in UFC 312 by Dreykus and Sean Strickland, a fight I honestly did not want. And then you got UFC 313, which is a fight that needed to happen, though, with Alex Pereira, your biggest star, one of the biggest fighters out of 2024, going up against Magomed Ankalaev. And even that wasn't really delivered as one of the best fights we could have seen. Obviously, the outcome most people wanted was Alex Pereira to come out on top. And that could have set up for even bigger matchups. But now Magomed Ankalaev is a freaking UFC champion. So the hype kind of plummeted after the result of that pay-per-view. Terrible way to end the pay-per-view, from my point of view, from my side of things, with UFC 313. And now we approach UFC 314. Okay, UFC 314 is incredibly stacked. I think a perfect Miami pay-per-view. Volk and Lopez, Prates, Yair, who else? Pimblett and Chandler. That card I have no issues with, no complaints whatsoever. They did their job on that pay-per-view with UFC 314. But now, and then 315, you got Bilal and Jack Della Maddalena in Canada. They're not going to really stack that up. That's what I hear. But now we approach the summer, June, July, August. The UFC is in a position where they could put on some of some of the craziest, most stacked cards of ever. And there really should be no excuse to not deliver on the fights that we want to see as fight fans in 2025. Now, you know where I'm getting at. We're, of course, referring to the mega fights, John Jones versus Tom Aspinall and Ilia Topuria versus Islam Makhachev. But first, before I get into all of that, let me talk about this real quick. Now, the rumors are that they're going to give us Sean O'Malley versus Merab for UFC 316, which honestly seems very likely to do. Because there hasn't been a clear number one contender. Sean O'Malley's been away since September. Merab's looking to get back in there. And the UFC probably has contemplated doing Peter Yan again, but maybe because Merab dominated him so bad that they didn't want to give Peter Yan the rematch. He needs to prove himself one more time with a fight. And maybe they're going to do Peter Yan versus Umar in UFC Qatar or something. I could see them doing that for a main event for UFC Qatar, which is going to be a fight night. But they're doing Sean O'Malley versus Merab again. Is this the right decision? Is this the right choice? I don't know. I mean, I know it's a better fight than Pantoja versus Kai Kara France to main event 316. And they're doing New Jersey. They don't really want to put on such a crazy pay-per-view in New Jersey. Let's just be real with it. But is this really a rematch that we as fight fans want to see? I don't know. I can't speak for everyone, but I don't think I'm as excited when I see this matchup on paper. A rematch between Sean O'Malley and Merab. That Sean's getting an immediate rematch. He only defended the title one time versus Chito Vera. And I mean, this could just be a repeat of the first fight. Merab using his free cardio and just grappling heavy style to compress and take away all of the skills and assets that Sean O'Malley had. Maybe people could argue that Sean O'Malley won a couple rounds in that fight, this and that. Merab was running in the 5th round. Who cares? If they're going to run this fight back again, it had to be competitive enough a fight, and I just didn't see that. I thought Merab did his game plan to completely decapitate Sean O'Malley's ability to use any of his striking or his skills, that what makes him an elite fighter. I don't know what could change, right? I mean, it would be the best thing for the UFC if Sean O'Malley somehow gets the belt back from Merab. And even in a KO knockout, that would be the best thing for the UFC. They just lost a crazy champion, Alex Pereira. They wanted Sean O'Malley to be their face of the UFC. So this is what the UFC wants. They want to give Sean O'Malley another chance to bring up his star power by getting the belt back. Is this the right move, though? I don't know. What I would have done is Pantoja. You were planning on putting Pantoja on 316? Put him up against Merab. Just do it. Do that mega fight. To Merab versus Pantoja, champion versus champion. They both don't have clear number one contenders in their divisions. Let Sean O'Malley fight someone else, like a Peter Yan 2, as a co-main event maybe on 316. Also, you had a crazy pay-per-view for 316 with Yan and Sean O'Malley, a 5-rounder in the co-main event, Merab and Pantoja. Give Pantoja that chance. Let Merab continue to cement. I don't know, but that's my thoughts on this, right? This isn't necessarily the most exciting matchup the UFC could do regarding this, honestly, with Merab and Sean O'Malley. But then you get to UFC 317, right? This card, we are hearing so much about it. What are they going to do? There's so many fighters that are putting their name in the hat for this card. It could be one of the most stacked pay-per-views. Probably is going to be the most stacked pay-per-view of the year. I have a feeling. It's going to be stacked like UFC 300. But the UFC has got to play it right. And what I think they're about to do is Charles Oliveira versus Ilia Topuria, unfortunately. We're hearing reports that Islam's team says he's got to fight the number one guy and Islam's not going to sign. But I believe we got to just believe that Islam's the kind of guy that will never decline a contract that's put his way in front of him. He always says he doesn't care, this and that. And now Charles Oliveira, according to Chael Sonnen, Charles Oliveira may be ducking Ilia Topuria, saying that he wouldn't fight Ilia Topuria unless there's a belt on the line. Like, can you believe this? Charles do Bronx Oliveira, a fan favorite who we know as a killer and a dog. Is he really ducking Ilia Topuria? Is he really saying he's not going to fight him if there's not a belt on the line? Charles Oliveira is in no position to say that. He still probably needs to fight another guy to reassert himself for the next shot at the title. I could see them doing this fight, though, as a co-main event in UFC 317. Charles versus Ilia. I mean, today there was something that came out that Charles Oliveira actually said, no, if they put this guy in front of me, I'll fight whoever, and I think I can knock him out. So maybe Chael Sonnen was lying. But I do not know if they're actually going to really deliver this fight that we really need between Ilia Topuria and Islam Makhachev. This is the time to do it. This is the number one time to do it. Ilia and Islam, you may not get the chance again. And again, one of my favorite YouTubers is Lucas Tracy. He's the inspiration to me starting my own YouTube channel. He just dropped a video about this. And just all his points across the board are so relatable to the kind of like where I'm feeling and my type of energy. This fight needs to happen. We never get this fight again if it doesn't happen now. If you have Ilia go through, not saying that I ever am doubting that Ilia Topuria wouldn't beat Charles Oliveira, but what about Islam? What if they give him the Justin Gaethje fight? Do you understand that? We cannot allow the UFC to fumble this by putting in Justin Gaethje instead of an Ilia Topuria. This would do nothing. Ilia Topuria would do more for the legacy of Islam than Justin Gaethje. We all know how hyped this fight could be. It's going to sell so many pay-per-views, like the trash talk. Ilia Topuria coming off two of the best back-to-back wins in the sport. He's an undefeated fighter. He's just he lightweight. He wouldn't have vacated his title if he knew that he was going to have to not get an immediate title shot versus Islam. This fight makes the most sense than a Justin Gaethje fight. Islam's going to beat Justin Gaethje. He's going to submit him. That's it. There's no debate. If Justin Gaethje, by some wild chance, gets a home run knockout on Islam, that would be one of the craziest things ever. It's a real Hail Mary, what I would say, if Justin Gaethje would pull that off. But you're 95% of the time getting an Islam Makhachev submitting Justin Gaethje in a main event. That would be a waste. Just like he did with Moicano, because Arman, I mean, maybe they do Ilia versus Arman. Look at this, bro. This right here, this is the fight that I need to see happen in my lifetime. Islam versus Ilia about to go at it. When that bell rings, this is what, just to build up the conference. They could make 317 a crazy card. Even if you don't do Jones versus Aspinall, Ilya, and Islam on the same card. You do Ilya versus Islam, and then there's rumors of maybe a co-main event with Dricus and Khamzat. That would be crazy. Sign me up. Sign me up for an Islam and Topuria, or even do a Khamzat and Dricus. And then if they don't end up doing this fight, do a Topuria versus Charles and do that on the same card. I mean, maybe they're going to do that, but yeah, the UFC just cannot fumble the opportunities here for the matchmaking with the rest of 2025. We were going to this year expecting some really big fights, expecting to have Jones versus Aspinall and Ilya versus Islam in the same year, which would definitely go down as one of the biggest years. And imagine this card, like 317, you got people like Whitaker and Sean Strickland that want to be on it, Charles Oliveira, maybe they put Arman Tsarukyan versus Hooker on it. The timelines now make sense. We have big fighters that missed their initial matchups this year so they could be put onto other cards like Hooker and Arman Tsarukyan. You got Holloway and Poirier that's going to probably come later this year. Not guaranteeing that they do Poirier versus Holloway, but I think that's a very strong likelihood. They could stack up 317 like crazy and then also do Jones versus Aspinall for 318. We got to get one of these fights. We got to get one of these fights in the UFC, either Jones or Aspinall or Ilya and Islam Makhachev. Because damn, like if they fumble this with what we know could happen and instead give us, you got a Sean O'Malley versus Merab and then a freaking Islam versus Justin Gaethje, and we don't even get Jones and Aspinall, and they just keep on giving us minimum, like mid cards. It's just, this is not the sport that I fell in love with. I fell in love with this sport because of what the sport is, but also of what the potential could be, being now in this time where we can have some of the biggest fights since Khabib and McGregor, that big fight feel. Obviously, we have these big main events, but nothing like this. Nothing touches this Jones and Aspinall and Islam versus Ilya Topuria ideas. We got to get these fights, bro, this year. And if we miss out on both these fights and we end up getting what I hope we don't get, then I don't even know what we're even doing anymore in the UFC when we're supposed to see the fight the best. You want to sell pay-per-views. You're about to land a new huge deal with a new streaming, Netflix maybe. This needs to happen for the UFC. I can't. They better not fumble the rest of 2025. Because right now, 2025 has been okay. It hasn't been strong. It's been okay. 314 is going to be crazy. 313 was all right. But now we're approaching the summer. We got to get 317, 318. We got to get the summer loaded up with some crazy cards. I want that UFC 300 type. And that's it. That's all I got to say on here. This has been the conversation for a couple of days now by a lot of different YouTubers. So I just wanted to come on here and give my opinion. So let's see what happens.